Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to look really closely at a fascinating clash between Hollywood fiction and strict biological reality. We're pulling back the curtain on one of nature's most visually stunning animals, the white lion. You've probably seen them, right? Looking absolutely majestic on screen, glowing white against the African savanna, and usually wrapped up in some intense, dramatic storyline. But how much of what pop culture tells us about these incredible creatures is actually grounded in genetics, and how much is just, well, movie magic? To get started, I want to pose a question that sits right at the center of how these animals are usually portrayed. Are white lions really outcasts? Because if you consume modern media, you're pretty much conditioned to believe that a white coat is a mark of exile in the animal kingdom, a tragic mutation that causes an animal to be completely shunned by its family, wandering the wilderness alone, or maybe forming aggressive splinter groups just out of pure survival instinct. I mean, it makes for fantastic cinema, but is it actually true to nature? Okay, let's dive into this. A prime example of this cinematic myth is in Disney's story Mufasa, the Lion King. In that narrative, white lions are literally referred to as the outsiders. They're depicted as this rival, hostile pride led by a lion named Kiras. And the storyline dictates that they were ostracized and cast out by the original prides specifically because of their unique genetic fur color. In the world of the movie, their distinct look forces them into isolation, turning them into a faction of aggressive antagonists. It's a super compelling plot device, for sure. But let's completely bust that myth right here and now. The reality is profoundly different. Real white lions are not a separate species, they aren't some weird subspecies, and they certainly aren't a distinct faction of permanent outcasts. They are completely normal African lions, scientifically known as Panthera leo. They simply carry a rare genetic condition called Leucism, which causes a partial loss of pigmentation in their fur. So they aren't genetic monsters, they are just your standard normal African lions rocking a really unique coat. To really understand what a white lion is, here is our roadmap for today. First, etymology, words for white. Second, genetics, melanin versus fur pigment. Third, vision, why eyes matter most. And finally, their true South African origins. Let's jump into Section 1, etymology, words for white, tracing the linguistic roots of pale pigmentation. And this brilliantly illustrates where a lot of the confusion comes from. Before we even get into the complex biology, tracing the linguistic roots of these terms gives us a really great mental framework for remembering the differences. It's fascinating how the history of language mirrors the distinct biological paths these conditions take. The word leucism derives from the ancient Greek word lykos, meaning white. Meanwhile, albino comes from the Latin word albus, which, you guessed it, also translates to white. Because both foundational words simply mean white, it's incredibly easy to see why the general public uses them interchangeably. But scientifically, they represent completely different genetic mechanisms. The journey of the word albino is actually especially interesting. It started back in antiquity with that Latin root albus. Then, in the 17th century, Portuguese explorers adapted it into the word albino specifically to describe individuals they encountered who had unusually light skin and hair. From there, the English language adopted the word directly from the Portuguese in the mid-1600s. So the word albino has this long, very specific history tied to a systemic lack of pigment across the whole body. All right, moving on to Section 2, genetics, melanin versus fur pigment, decoding the biological drivers. So the crucial point is this: when we move from the dictionary to the actual DNA, the difference is stark. Human albinism is driven by a genetic mutation resulting in a total absence or a really significant deficiency of melanin. It's systemic. It affects the entire body, and it can occur in pretty much any animal species or human population on Earth. On the flip side, lion leucism is driven by a localized recessive regional gene. It absolutely does not eliminate melanin systemically. It merely reduces color pigment in the fur, and it is native strictly to South African lions. Because leucism isn't systemic, white lions aren't actually totally pale. Unlike the completely washed-out appearance of an albino animal, a leucistic white lion retains dark, normal pigmentation on its surface features. If you look closely at a true white lion, you're going to see deep, dark black or brown pigment on their nose pads, their lips, the rims around their eyes, and their paw pads. This retained pigment is literally the gold standard for visually proving you are looking at leucism, not albinism. Which brings us to Section 3, vision, why eyes matter most. The crucial role of melanin in eye development. While the fur and skin are definitely the most obvious indicators, the most profound biological difference between these two realities is found by looking right into their eyes. You see, melanin isn't just about color. It plays a critical structural role. In human albinism, the iris of the eye is physically translucent because it lacks the melanin pigment needed to block out incoming light. This lack of pigment makes the eyes look pale gray, light blue, or sometimes even pink or red. And actually, scratch that. That red color isn't actually pigment at all. It's called vascular reflection. You are literally seeing light bounce off the blood vessels at the back of the retina. But contrast this with a leucistic lion. They have normally pigmented eyes that fall right into the standard range for lions, typically appearing a beautiful blue, hazel, or golden color. The light is blocked normally. And this difference in the eyes, it's not just cosmetic, it's heavily developmental. Melanin acts as this vital scaffolding during the development of the eye in the womb. Because human albinism lacks this melanin, it leads to severe and permanent vision impairments. One major complication is nystagmus, which is an involuntary, rapid bouncing or flickering of the eyes. The hardware of the eye simply couldn't build itself properly without that melanin scaffolding in place. Let's move to optico and see how this builds into further complications, like phobophobia. Because that translucent iris can't act like a sunshade to block light, individuals experience severe, often painful light sensitivity. And this is frequently compounded by blurred, unfocused vision because the fovea, which is the part of the retina responsible for your sharp central vision, remains underdeveloped. But contrast all of those severe medical challenges with this incredible fact. Lion Leucism causes absolutely zero vision impairment. None. No way, right? White lions do not suffer from nystagmus, they do not have photophobia, and their retinas develop perfectly. They maintain 100% normal visual functionality. They're just as capable of spotting prey in the distance as their tawny-colored brothers and sisters. And our final stop, Section 4, True South African Origins. Where do they really come from? Now that we know they are perfectly healthy, fully sighted African lions, where are they actually from? Let's take them out of the Hollywood script and put them back onto the actual map of the world. In nature, the birth of a white lion is a rare but entirely natural mathematical event. Step 1. Both parents, even if they have standard brown coats themselves, must carry this specific recessive gene. Step 2. If the genetics align perfectly, a white lion cub is born into the wild. And Step 3, and this completely shatters the movie myth, the pride accepts the cub as a normal family member. They are not ostracized, they are not exiled to form a villainous gang, they are loved and integrated by their family, even though, yeah, their bright coat admittedly makes natural camouflage a little bit harder when it's time to hunt. Now, what's really interesting about this is their geography. Unlike albinism, which can pop up in a squirrel in New York or a penguin in Antarctica, true wild white lions are native only to very specific geographic pockets. This recessive trait is highly localized to just the Timbavati and Kruger regions of South Africa. It is a unique genetic footprint tied intimately to this specific corner of the globe. So, as you can see, white lions definitely aren't the outcast albinos that pop culture portrays. They are localized, perfectly sighted, family-oriented lions rocking a very rare South African leucistic coat. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If Hollywood is willing to completely rewrite genetic realities just to make a convenient movie plot, what other natural wonders are we fundamentally misunderstanding? Keep questioning what you see, keep learning, and thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.